So, Mr. Matondo, um, before we start in with Benavidez and the Morell fight, I just want to know this fight can be fight of the year. What do you think about this fight?
It's possible. It's very possible because
Very strong.
it's such a great
Oh,
matchup that we don't
yes.
know who is going to take the edge. So
No, man, we
it's
don't know. So
possible.
it's gonna be a hard to break down this fight, my man.
Yeah,
Okay. First off, David Morrell is actually David Morrell isn't really well known, you know. So the fact that Benavidez took this fight, that 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 tells you the mentality of David Benavidez, you know. He
yeah,
just won it all. He want a big fight. He want to smoke.
yeah.
Benavidez is in for greatness.
He's an old school fighter, an old school fighter like back in the days. He doesn't care. He just wants to prove himself. He wants to beat the best and becoming the best, beating the best. So that makes him a really special kind of fighter.
Yes. Um, you know, if I'm thinking about these fights, I'm like, it's kind of a lose-lose situation for Benavidez. Like, you know, in the boxing worlds, I think Benavidez is gonna get a lot of credit by beating Morel, but as a casual fans, they don't really know about Morel. So, it's not really a lose-lose because if he wins, then
Yeah,
his resume is gonna be from Killer Plants, now Dimitris Andredi to Vazik to Morel.
yeah.
That's a great resume.
It's
That's
a
a
great
great resume.
resume, and
Yeah,
it's no problem that the casual don't know, but the
yeah,
real boxing fans they know. Like
yeah.
if you look at the boxing greats like Roy Jones Jr. or Floyd Mayweather or the boxing people like Jermell Charlo, all the people who are in the boxing worlds, they know about David Morrell. They know he's a kind of special fighter. He was a great amateur with more than 135 fights, I guess. He lost only
And in
two
Cuba,
amateur bouts, so that
yeah,
tells you all about him. So I'm really curious about how the fight is gonna play out because
man, yeah.
I remember at first when I heard about the fights, I was actually sure that Benavidez was gonna win this one, but after watching Morel for a few days, I was really seeing things differently. So I'm I really don't know what's gonna happen this night.
You know, it's an intriguing fight, you know. Actually it's a 50-50 fight, you know. Yes, Benavidez got more experience, but you know, the thing is, we speak about Morel having a lot of fights as an amateur. You know, I think the experience is more like in your head, you know. Are you
Mhm.
calm? Are you collected? You know, I don't really think that the experience will come to how many rounds that you did in the pros, how many rounds that you did uh, at the at the peak, but I just think that the 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 experience gonna be like how calm are you, are you able to follow
Yeah,
the game plan, are you able to follow
exactly.
the game plan, are you able to adjust. I think that's gonna make the difference, you know.
Yeah, because they both are at the biggest stage of boxing. So
Yeah.
at this stage, nobody cares about your amateur records or about your
records. Yeah,
opponents that you fought. We
no.
also saw with Crawford's people were laughing like he didn't fight nobody. Spence is gonna whoop his ass and this and that, and we all seen what happened. So at this stage, it's about David Morell versus David Benavidez, and what they did in the past, it doesn't matter until tonight. So we'll
It
see
doesn't
what's gonna
matter, you
happen.
know.
Doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
so I agree. I agree. And by the way, it's David Benavidez versus David Morell, um, and not David Morell versus David Benavidez. But let's go on the fights on the fight game. You know, let me start to say kudos to both of them. You know, they're young, strong, in the prime of their life. You know, hungry. They're both confident that they can beat one
Yeah,
another. And you know, if look at David Morrell, I think the best weapon for him will be timing. You know, I think
yeah,
he should time Benavides. He should take the fight to Benavides as well. I think he might. Uh, I think if he might hurt Benavides in the beginning of the first 4 rounds,
yeah,
um, he might take the fight. He might edge the fight. But I think if Benavides is hurting Morell in the beginning of the fight, it's going to be a long, tough night for Morell. So it's depending like how the fight starts. If Morell can hurt
yeah.
Benavides in the early stage, then we're gonna see Benavides for the first time. He's gonna go very deep. But if Benavides can start off fast and explosive and be himself, then it's gonna be a tough because Benavides as the round is going, he is get better and better and better. So if he can start off fast and very good, then I don't really see Morale doing too much damage. However, you know, I give Morale the edge of power. You know, I think
Yeah.
they're both hard hitters, but I think I'm gonna edge Morale on that. You know, how do you
Yeah.
think? Who do you think is the most hard hitter of the two of them?
Like if we're talking about raw power, then I think Morel has like the bigger power or the better strength, like in his punches. But if you look at the power of Benavides, it's more that it's the speed and the quickness of the punches that hurt you. It's more like when Manny Pacquiao is hitting you, you're also going down because of the quickness of the shots.
Yeah, you're making a great point. You know, you can say that Morel is gonna be the harder puncher, but you know, in those kind of fights, I think speed is more dangerous
Yeah,
than that little power that you edge, you know, because speed
exactly.
is yeah, the punches that you can't see, that's the punches that are gonna matters, you know, and
And
Benavides is
that's
very
also yeah, and
yeah.
that's also one of the questions that I got for tonight. I'm really wondering how Morel is going to handle the speed and the quickness of Benavides. That's my only concern. When I was watching the David Morel fights, his previous fights, I noticed that his hands uh, aren't as quick as those of Benavides. And that's the only thing I think is going to give him a lot of problems tonight. But if we look at other things, I think David Morales is more accomplished, like his skills. He got more. Uh, um, he got better hooks. He got better timing. He got also, I think, a better distant management and a better defense. So it's really a 50-50 fight in my eyes.
Really a 50-50 fight. My man, we don't have too much time, so I'm gonna ask you how do you see the fight going? And who do you got, my man? Who do you got? Is it the
So,
slick Morell or is it the speedy Benavidez? Who do you edge? How do you see the fight going?
hmm, I would say if I really had to put my money on it, hmm, then I would say Benavides. But
Tough one.
it 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 might be an upset when I wake up tomorrow and I look at the fights. It might be
Do
Morel.
you think David Morell knocking out Benavides or beating Benavides, that will be an upset? Do you think that? Because to me it's a
For
50-50
for
fight, so I
for the
wouldn't say an
casuals,
upset.
it would be an upset. Like
You
Benavides is
know,
the
I feel you. It will be in an upset because of the way Benavides roll, the way the Benavides talk, the way that Benavides
yeah,
conduct himself. That's more an upset. But if you think a little further on that, for me, it goes both ways because
yeah,
beating David Morrell is also kind of an upset because you are beating a strong, like heavyweight, a Cuban, a slick
mhm,
southpaw, hard hitter guy. So you can look at as, yeah,
yeah,
there is both an upset. So I don't. The thing that I hope is I don't want to hear a draw. I want to have
yeah,
a winner in these fights.
yeah.
My prediction about this fight, I've been thinking a lot about this fight, and especially I'm a Benavidez fan, so I'm a little bit biased. But then I was thinking, like, put that away, just think about just think about the style of them. They're both very strong. They're both very good. Even David Morrell also has very fast hands. You can't see more highlights where Morrell is putting his combination together that fast, but if you find some highlights that he's putting his combination, you can see that he's got really fast hands. So, you
Mhm.
know, it's kind of almost 50-50. Then I was thinking about who has the better chin, who can
Mm.
take a punch and can take deep and um, go into the fire. And then I was thinking about Benavidez sparring Golovkin, Benavidez sparring this, Benavidez sparring that. And based on Benavidez sparring lots of strong people, I'm going to give the edge to Benavidez because I think this fight is going to come down also like we can take the best shots and still can continue to take the fight to one another. And I think
Yeah,
Benavidez is going to be that guy that when Morel rocks Benavidez, he's going to shake it off and still continue to fire Morel. And for now, I haven't really seen a lot of Morel that he can, yeah, that tells that when someone rocks him, that he can take a punch and bounce back. I think
yeah,
he got the potential to do that, but we haven't
Yeah.
seen yet. So
We
that's
haven't
the
seen the
reason.
birds,
Yeah.
but
So that's
but
the
we
reason why
yeah.
I'm picking Benavidez. But man, oh, it's so a close fight that for me, either way is an upset. David
Yeah.
Benavidez beating Morell is an upset. David Morell beating Benavidez is an upset. For me, it's both an upset because they're both
It's yeah,
talented, great fighters.
and there's really bad blood between them, so that makes the
Really
fight
bad blood.
even more
Yeah,
exciting.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah. So our prediction goes to Benavidez. Um, yeah, my man. We might do a post fight. Uh, but to end off, we want to tell that um our next podcast gonna be back together, back around the table. Um, we're gonna add the little things on it because we're just starting. We are learning to how to manage a good podcast. If you have some advice, let us know in the comments. And
some little
yeah, man,
feedback or
it's going
something.
down.
Yeah,
It's
it's
going
really a
down.
great year for boxing. So
It's a very man
lots to
for
talk
me.
about.
For me, David Morell versus David Benavidez is an is a more interesting fight than Bivol
Crawford
versus
Canelo.
Better BF.
Yeah,
As the first one. I'm speaking about the first fight. I
yeah,
rate her. If there were two fights at the same time and at the same time fighting, and I have to choose David Benavidez versus David Morell, or Bivol versus um,
yeah,
Arthur Beterbiev, I will I will want to see the David Morell versus the David Benavidez. So let us
yeah.
know in the comments which fights, if
You will
they
choose to
both are
watch.
at the same time fighting, which fight would you rate to see?